got a great speaker. Everybody wants to get more media. And as I said before, the problem is most people approach it that it's all about me. And that's the wrong way to do it. With the media, it's all about them. You've got to give them what they want. But most authors, most speakers, they don't do that. And Marsha, who's been in this business for, dare I say, decades, and has worked with thousands of authors, and has worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, and has gotten them high-profile media. In that course of time, she knows what it takes to get media, and it's to deliver what they want. So Marsha, who's the author of a best-selling book titled Celebritize Yourself, and is the president and CEO of EMSI, which is a pay-for-performance public relations firm. She's going to share with you in this final session how to get media and how to deliver to the media exactly what they want so you can get booked. So let's give a very warm round of applause and a great introduction to our next speaker, Marsha Friedman.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Adam. You know, funny thing, as he was standing there screaming, sex, sex, I'm thinking, it sounds much better coming from him than it would from me, I got to tell you, the grandmother over here. My kids would never understand it. So the other thing I wanted to share with you as I was listening to Yolanda's workshop, how many of you were here on Yolanda's workshop? Yeah? She's fabulous, right? Okay. So I'm listening to her and I'm thinking, great, I get to go after Yolanda, who's teaching about public speaking. You see, here's the thing. I'm not a professional public speaker. So I'm thinking I could change everything, or I could tell you right out front. I'm a professional PR. I'm a professional marketer. I'm a professional talk show host. I'm a professional wife, mother, grandmother, public speaker, not. So let's just get it out on the table, okay? But you know what? One of the things I was telling my husband was that I love speaking to groups like you because you're authors. And that's really special. And this is really true. The few times that I do speak to other groups, I'm usually spending about 30 minutes explaining to them what the value is of having a book as a marketing vehicle for your business. You see, but you guys already know that. So well done to you. You're either writing a book, you're publishing a book, but you've got it. You must understand, I would assume, you understand the power of having a book. You understand probably the power that it gives you with the media, because it really is. So well done. Great accomplishment. Now, I want to kind of tell you a little bit about why I'm speaking up here. You see? Can't even, there you go. I have been in the business for 21 years as a PR. I only have an hour and 15 minutes to share with you some really important tactics and strategies, and that's my goal for you this afternoon. I really want to help you understand. Like Adam said, he's absolutely spot on. The media could care less about you and how most people approach the media, not only individuals, but also, I mean, unfortunately, I've seen it with PR agencies. They don't really understand that they've got to give the media what the media wants, and it is not about you. So I'm going to go over some basic tactics and strategies with you this afternoon. And I got to tell you, we book in my company 50 radio interviews week in, week out. We book 7 to 10 local and national TV appearances week in, week out. We get 20 million impressions print week in, week out. I'm telling you this not because, well, I'm proud, but also because I want to say that's a lot of media. And there really is a formula. It's not just writing a press release about, you know, your new VP or the new building that you bought. That'll get you nowhere. There really is a formula. And that's the kind of stuff I want to be able to share with you today. My background, just so you know, is really not even PR. Prior to starting my agency 21 years ago, I used to put on financial seminars in the investment and financial community. And we had speakers like President Gerald Ford, Alan Greenspan, General Alexander Haig, some really big name people. My job was to get attendees, thousands of attendees. That was my role in the company. So that was what I did prior to opening up my agency. And it's relative because I approached PR from a marketing perspective. And you guys need to recognize that's really what it's about. You're marketing to the media. The very basic principles in marketing really apply in the same way to PR. And I had to figure it all out. I mean, I never went to college. Well, I never went to college, but I didn't get a degree anywhere in PR. I never worked for a PR agency, so I didn't figure out or know what they did. And you know what? I think that was really to my advantage, because I didn't have any of the bad habits. I didn't have the false data. I had to figure it out myself. And like Adam was saying, we're a pay-for-performance agency, and what that means, particularly in the early days, is that we booked the media, and then we got paid. So I had to figure out early on, how do you book the media? Because if I didn't book it, guess what? We didn't get paid. So again, there's some really basic principles. I want to share some of that with you today. The other thing, as you know, I've got this book, me too, I got a book, Celebritize Yourself. And this book is the culmination of about, 17 or 18 years of working with people in the media. People that aren't big name, not necessarily well-known celebrities, but people who, mostly nonfiction authors, who had a message, who understood, who had a real passion to get their message out, and who would come to us to book the media for them. And that's really the culmination of this book and the work in this book. And I realized early on, it was kind of a funny thing, because I realized early on there was a formula there. One of my very first clients was a guy by the name of Dan Pilla. Now, Dan was an IRS, he was a consultant for people who had problems with the IRS. He was raised, when he was a young kid, his dad was arrested and thrown in jail for not paying taxes. They closed down his business. He was passionate about helping people with IRS problems. And his business was primarily as a consultant, but he also had a book. And I'm going back to 1990. So he hired us to book him as a guest on radio shows around the country and on TV. And we did that. And Dan was so phenomenal with his message that he wound up actually publishing a lot more books, doing seminars, and the consulting business actually went to the wayside because he had a really strong business with his books and being a public speaker and doing seminars. It can be done. Another client of mine, which is kind of a cute story, was a Dr. Ted Brower. And I'll never forget the story because it was a Sunday morning, and I was doing what most Jewish girls do on a Sunday morning. Anybody Jewish girl here? No, I'm the only one? Let me tell you what we do. We go out to the delicatessen and we buy lox and bagels for the family, okay? So here I was out there going to the deli. I get in my car, and my car's always tuned to a talk radio station because I love talk radio. I'm a nut about it. And here's this guy, and he's talking about the 10 foods you shouldn't eat. And I was completely engaged in hearing about the 10 foods you shouldn't eat. And he's going on, sugar, obviously, flour, that kind of stuff. But by the time I got to the deli, I didn't want to leave the car because he was so good. And of course, he had a book. He also had some products. But I couldn't leave the car. I wanted to stay in that car until what's number one? What's the top food I shouldn't eat? Which, by the way, was shrimp. They're the bottom feeders, he said, like cockroaches. So I called him up the next day, ordered his book, bought the product, and told him what I do and how I want to, book him on radio. And of course, he said, great. That was 20 years ago. He's still a client today. But he also understood the power of the medium, because if you understand the power of it, it can work for you in ways that you just have no idea. Another example is a doctor whose name I won't mention, and you'll understand why in a minute, but he was also a pathologist in a hospital up in New York area. And again, this was the 90s, right? Chronic fatigue was the fad of the fad disease. Everybody had chronic fatigue, and his books were on chronic fatigue. So we booked him as a guest on radio. He traveled all around, and we booked him on TV and so on. And I found out a few years later from his business manager that he was so successful, I don't think the guy had any idea of really the power of his message and how he delivered it. But they had to open up a second clinic in Manhattan because they had patients lined up in the halls every night doing chelation therapy. I mean, he was so busy because he had a great message. The other thing he told me, which I'll share with you, but I won't mention names, is he's a pathologist, right? He was also doing his radio interviews while he was, checking the microscope with the biopsies and when the guys were, his patient was under the operating room. But he was so good at it. He really knew how to use the media. And my point to you is that all three of these guys, all three of these clients had something very much in common, which I bet would be similar for you. Number one, they had a message that had mass appeal. Very important. Number two, they had a book, because that book positions you as an expert in your field. That book opens the door to the media. They had that. The third thing they had, they loved doing the media. They loved being interviewed. They understood the power of it. Now, my husband is always pushing me to make sure I tell everybody they weren't born that way. They didn't start out that way. Just like we don't all start out as great speakers. They did enough of it. They got the rhythm of it. They knew they enjoyed it. They knew how to work it. So those three things are really a very, very basic formula that you really need to have in your business. And they were really excellent about it. And I have to tell you, as a marketer, there is no better time than now to promote yourself, your book, and your business. Again, I'm coming at it from a PR perspective, right? Well, why do I say that? Because now we have, today, you've got, does anybody here listen to talk radio? I know I do. I'm a nut. You do? You've got, okay. Well, then you've got shows on fitness, you've got finance shows, you've got politics, you've got sports talk radio, you've got all kinds of specialty programming. What does that mean for you? It means that there's a place on radio shows as a guest for all of you with your different topics. Same thing with TV. Cable TV. Years ago, what did we have? We had ABC, NBC, CBS. That was it. Now we've got cable TV, we've got Home and Gardening, we've got the Food Network, we've got Sport Network, we have religious shows. The point in all of this is that the good news for you, it opens up a forum for all of you. There's a place for you. No matter what your message is, you just have to fit into the right medium, knowing the right shows for your message. We didn't have that.